Finally free of the drama. That was the caption my sister tagged me in, underneath a photo of my whole family drinking champagne at the Ritz Paris. I was reading it from an ICU bed, terrified and bleeding internally. While they were celebrating their vacation, my phone buzzed again with a text from my dad. He didn't ask if I was alive. He wrote, "Answer the phone." The credit card declined. Before I tell you exactly what I whispered to my father when he finally picked up the phone, drop a comment telling me, "What is the most unforgivable thing a family member has ever done to you?" I'm reading every single one. The silence in an ICU isn't actually quiet. It's a heavy, suffocating weight that presses down on your chest, punctuated only by the rhythmic hissing of the ventilator and the beep of the heart monitor. I lay there for hours, just staring at the ceiling tiles, counting the little dots until they blurred together. My head felt like it was wrapped in barbed wire. I'm Sierra. I'm 24 years old, and I build software for a living. My entire job is about finding bugs, fixing errors, and making things run logically. But lying in that bed, I couldn't find a single logical reason why I was alone. I picked up my phone again. The screen was the only source of light in the room. I opened Instagram. There was a new story from my sister, Caitlin. It was a video of her twirling in a designer dress I knew cost more than my first car. My mother was in the background laughing, holding a shopping bag from Hermes. They looked radiant. They looked perfect. Then the pain hit me again. A sharp, blinding spike behind my eyes that made me gasp. It wasn't a new pain. I'd been feeling this for 6 months. I remembered standing in my parents' kitchen 3 months ago, clutching the counter because the room was spinning. I told them, "Mom, something is wrong. I need to see a specialist." My mother didn't even look up from her iPad. She just sighed. That long, suffering sigh she saved for me. "Sierra, stop it. You're stressed because you work too much. You're always looking for drama." "It's not drama," I had whispered. "It hurts." My father had chimed in then, walking past me to pour himself a scotch. "CT scans cost thousands, Sierra. We're not spending our retirement money just because you have a migraine. Take an Advil and toughen up." They made me feel small. They made me feel like a burden for having a body that was failing. So I took the Advil. I toughened up. And now, I was lying here with a brain bleed because I had believed them. I looked back at the photo of them in Paris. And suddenly, it made perfect sense. It wasn't that they didn't love me. It was simpler than that. It was economics. To people like my parents, children aren't humans. We are investments. Caitlin is a blue-chip stock. She's beautiful, she's loud. She brings them social currency and envy from the neighbors. She pays dividends and validation. Me? I'm a bad asset. I'm the one with the health issues. I'm the one who needs things. I'm a liability on their balance sheet. And when an investment starts costing more than it returns, you don't save it. You liquidate it. You cut your losses. That's why they were in Paris. They weren't just on vacation. They were spending the money they saved by ignoring my symptoms. I decided to try one last time. Just once. I needed to hear their voices. I needed to know if there was any humanity left in them. I pressed call on my father's contact. It rang once. Twice. 3 times. I imagined him looking at the screen, seeing my name, and sighing. I imagined him thinking about the roaming charges. The call went to voicemail. But it didn't ring out. He had hit the decline button. I didn't leave a message. I lowered the phone. The tears I expected didn't come. Instead, a cold, hard clarity settled over me. It was the kind of cold that burns. I opened my contacts list. I found Dad. I hit edit. I scrolled down to the bottom and pressed delete contact. Then I did the same for Mom. And Caitlin. The room was still silent, but it didn't feel heavy anymore. It felt empty. And for the first time in my life, I realized that emptiness was better than the noise of people who wished I didn't exist. I closed my eyes and waited for the nurse. I was done being a daughter. Now, I was just a survivor. The door to my room didn't open. It flew open. I expected a nurse. I expected a doctor telling me my insurance had bounced. I did not expect to see a man in a bespoke charcoal suit, holding a leather briefcase like a weapon. It was my grandfather, Johnny. We call him the Silver Fox, not because he's cute, but because he's cunning. He hasn't spoken to my father in 5 years. Not since Dad tried to borrow money against Johnny's estate without asking. He didn't rush to the bed to hug me. He didn't offer empty platitudes. He walked straight to the bedside table, moved my water pitcher aside, and slammed a thick file folder onto the plastic surface. "Read it," he said. His voice was gravel and steel. "Grandpa, I just had a brain bleed. I can barely see straight. You need to see this," he insisted, pulling a chair up and sitting with a heavy sigh. He looked older than I remembered, but his eyes were sharp, burning with a cold fire I'd never seen directed at me before. I assumed you knew, Sierra. I assumed you were complicit. But when I saw your sister's post, I realized they've been playing us both. I opened the folder. It was a forensic audit of a bank account I didn't recognize. What is this? That, he pointed a manicured finger at the header, is the Henderson Family Medical Trust. I set it up the day you were born. I knew you had health issues. I put $125,000 in there to ensure you never had to worry about a bill. My breath hitched. $125,000. I had been working double shifts while my head felt like it was splitting open because I couldn't afford a $50 copay. I don't understand, I whispered. I never knew this existed. Because the trustees your parents didn't want you to know, Johnny said. He flipped the page to the transaction log. I get monthly statements. I saw withdrawals labeled medical expense, Sierra. I thought they were helping you. But last night, I did something I should have done years ago. I cross-referenced the dates. He tapped a line item dated 3 days ago. Withdrawal. $12,000. Memo. Emergency specialist. 3 days ago, Johnny said, his voice dropping to a dangerous whisper. That was the day they booked the presidential suite at the Ritz Paris. He flipped back a few pages. Withdrawal. $4,500. Memo. Physical therapy. The day your mother posted her new Chanel bag. Withdrawal. $2,800. Memo. Medication. The day Caitlin got her VIP tickets to Fashion Week. I stared at the numbers. They weren't just stealing. They were meticulous about it. They had built a narrative. To my grandfather, I was a sickly, expensive burden who needed constant financial rescuing. To me, they were broke parents who couldn't help. They had played the middleman, siphoning off my lifeline to fund their lifestyle. They told me the money was for private rehab, Johnny said, his jaw tightening. They told me you had a drug problem, Sierra. That's why I stayed away. I didn't want to enable an addict. The room spun. It wasn't the tumor this time. It was the sheer weight of the betrayal. They hadn't just stolen my money. They had stolen my reputation. They had stolen my relationship with my grandfather. They had painted me as a junkie to cover their own greed. I looked up at him. I've never touched a drug in my life. I work 60 hours a week. I know, he said softly. I ran a background check on you this morning. Clean record. High credit score. Gainfully employed. They lied about everything. He reached into his jacket pocket and pulled out a black Amex card. He placed it on top of the file. I am the grantor of that trust. I have oversight privileges. But more importantly, I have a very good lawyer who specializes in fraud. He stood up, buttoning his jacket. You focus on staying alive, Sierra. I'm going to focus on getting your money back. How? I asked. They're in Paris. They spent it. Johnny smiled. It wasn't a nice smile. It was the smile of a wolf who just found the gate to the sheep pen left open. They think they're untouchable because they're family, he said. But they forgot one thing. I taught your father everything he knows about money. But I didn't teach him everything I know. He tapped the file one last time. Rest now. The war starts when you wake up. A nurse came in 5 minutes later with a wheelchair. It's time to prep you for the OR, honey. Dr. Chen is scrubbing in. I nodded, trying to sit up. But the room tilted violently. I gripped the railing, my knuckles turning white. The fear of the surgery of someone cutting into my skull was a cold knot in my stomach. But it was nothing compared to the nausea churning inside me from what Grandpa Johnny had just revealed. They had stolen my safety net. Now, I was about to find out they had cut the rope, too. We hadn't even made it to the elevator when a woman in a gray blazer intercepted us. She held a clipboard against her chest like a shield. She wouldn't look me in the eye. Miss Parker, she said, her voice tight. I'm so sorry, but we have a problem with your admission. I just got off the phone with your insurance provider. I gave you my card. I rasped. It's valid. It was valid, she corrected gently. But the policy was terminated by the primary account holder. Effective 48 hours ago, the hallway seemed to stretch and warp. Terminated? That's impossible. My father manages the family plan. He wouldn't. But even as I said it, the math clicked into place in my head, with the precision of a line of code executing a command. 48 hours ago. That was the morning of their flight. There was a premium refund issued for the cancellation, the administrator continued, checking her notes. A credit of $1,600 was returned to the card on file. $1,600. My hand flew to my phone. I didn't care about the pain in my head anymore. I scrolled back to the Instagram story Caitlin had posted from the airport lounge. There was a photo of their boarding passes. First class. Seat 1A, 1B. I opened the airline's app. I punched in the flight number. I checked the upgrade cost from economy to first class for that specific route. The price flashed on the screen. $800 per seat. 2 seats. $1,600. The world stopped. It wasn't a mistake. It wasn't an oversight. They had logged into the insurance portal, canceled my coverage, the coverage that was the only thing standing between me and bankruptcy, between me and death to get a refund. And they had used that exact refund to buy extra legroom. They had traded my life for warm nuts and a reclining seat. I looked up at the administrator. She was blurring through my tears, but I refused to let them fall. They canceled it, I whispered. To upgrade their flight. She looked horrified. Miss Parker, without coverage, the deposit for this surgery is $85,000. We can't proceed without. Run the card. A voice growled from behind me. Grandpa Johnny stepped forward. He didn't look at the administrator. He was looking at me, and his face was a mask of absolute, terrifying fury. He held out the black Amex between 2 fingers. Run it for the full amount, he commanded. Private room. Top-tier recovery. Whatever she needs. If you stop that gurney again, I will buy this hospital and fire you. The administrator took the card with shaking hands and ran back to the desk. Johnny put a hand on my shoulder. His grip was iron. You are going into that operating room, Sierra. You are going to survive. And when you wake up, we aren't just going to sue them. We are going to eviscerate them. I looked at the elevator doors sliding open. I wasn't scared of the surgery anymore. I wasn't scared of the pain. I felt a cold, dark fire igniting in my chest. Burning up the grief, burning up the longing for a family that didn't exist. Okay, I said. Let's go. I woke up to the smell of antiseptic and the feeling of a freight train parked on my skull. But I woke up. My eyes cracked open, gritty and dry. The room was dim, illuminated only by the glow of the monitors. I tried to speak, but my throat was sandpaper. I shifted my hand, and I felt a squeeze. Easy, kid. You made it. Grandpa Johnny was sitting in the same chair, still wearing his suit, though he'd loosened his tie. He looked tired, but there was a strange, electric energy vibrating off him. He wasn't looking at me, though. He was looking at his phone, watching the seconds tick by on the clock. What? I rasped. Shh, he whispered, holding up a finger. Showtime. He pressed dial and put the phone on speaker. Then, he did something that terrified me. He slumped in the chair. His posture collapsed. His hands started to tremble visibly. He cleared his throat, but instead of his usual gravelly baritone, a weak, wheezing sound came out. Hello, Kenneth? Johnny said. His voice sounded like it was coming from a man on his deathbed. Kenneth, are you there? My father's voice burst through the speaker, loud and annoyed. Dad? It's 3 a.m. Here. We're in Paris. What is it? I didn't know who else to call, Johnny stammered, injecting just the right amount of panic into his tremor. It's the IRS, son. They raided the office. They're talking about an audit. A freeze on everything. What? The annoyance in my father's voice instantly sharpened into alarm. What do you mean a freeze? They're coming for the estate, Kenneth. All of it. The portfolio, the offshore accounts. It's nearly $2 million in liquid assets. If I don't move it into a protected family trust by the end of the business day today, the government is going to seize it. It'll be gone. I watched from the bed, mesmerized. It was a masterclass. Johnny wasn't just lying. He was painting a nightmare specifically designed for my parents. To them, losing money was a fate worse than death. 2 million? My father's voice cracked. I could hear movement in the background, sheets rustling. Well, move it. Wire it out. I can't. Johnny coughed. A wet, rattling sound that made me wince even though I knew it was fake. I'm flagged. I can't be the sole grantor. I need a family member, someone with clean assets to co-sign the trust creation. We have to merge assets to shield the capital. I need you to seed the trust with a physical property. Your house. My house? It's just a formality to legitimize the shelter, Johnny wheezed. We merge your house deed with my 2 million. The trust locks it all down. Irrevocable. Untouchable by the IRS. Once the heat dies down in a month, we dissolve it and split the pot. But Kenneth, I don't think I have the strength to fight them. I need you here. I need you to sign. Silence stretched over the line. I knew what my father was doing. He was calculating. He wasn't thinking about his dying father. He wasn't thinking about his daughter recovering from brain surgery. He was thinking about $2 million. If I sign, Dad said slowly. The assets are jointly held, controlled by the grantors, Johnny lied smoothly. You and me. But you have to be here. The notary is coming to the hospital at 9 a.m. If you aren't here to sign the deed over to the trust, the window closes. The government takes it all. We're coming, Dad said. The decision was instant. We're heading to Charles de Gaulle now. Don't sign anything until I get there. Don't let them take a dime, old man. Hold on. The line went dead. Johnny set the phone down on the bedside table. He sat up straight, fixed his tie, and the frailty vanished instantly. The wolf was back. They're coming? I whispered. They're sprinting, Johnny said, pouring himself a glass of water. They'll leave the Ritz without checking out. They'll pay triple for last-minute tickets. They'll be here by morning. But the 2 million doesn't exist, Johnny said calmly. The IRS audit? Fiction. But the trust documents? Those are real. My lawyer drafted them while you were in surgery. He looked at me, his expression turning serious. This wasn't a game to him. It was a lesson. You have to understand how people like your parents think, Sierra. It's called the greed delusion. When a predator smells blood, or in this case, money, their critical thinking centers shut down. They focus so hard on the prize that they stop looking at the trap. They didn't ask about you. They didn't ask about the surgery. They heard 2 million, and tax shelter, and their brains turned off. He tapped the folder on his lap. They think they are flying back to save their inheritance. They think they are signing a paper to become millionaires. He smirked. A cold, sharp expression that made me glad he was on my side. They don't know they are flying back to sign a quitclaim deed that transfers their paid-off house into a trust where you are the sole beneficiary. They are crossing the Atlantic Ocean to homeless themselves. I laid my head back against the pillow. The pain was still there, throbbing in the background. But for the first time in forever, I didn't feel helpless. I felt like the person holding the detonator. Get some sleep, kid, Johnny said, opening his newspaper. You need to look your best when they hand you the keys. They burst into the room at 8:58 a.m. Smelling of stale airplane air and desperation. My mother, Patricia, was wearing yesterday's makeup. Her eyeliner smeared beneath eyes that darted around the room like a trapped animal. My father, Kenneth, looked frantic, clutching a leather portfolio. They didn't look at me. I was sitting right there, my head wrapped in post-surgical bandages, hooked up to 3 different IVs, and their eyes slid right past me to find the man in the corner. My father rushed to Johnny's bedside, panic in his voice. We made it. Is the money safe? Is the IRS here yet? Johnny played the role perfectly slumped in a chair, oxygen mask dangling uselessly, a fake heart monitor blaring erratic beeps from a hidden recording. Time, he wheezed, pointing weakly. The courier, he's leaving. By the window stood Mr. Henderson, a notary who despised my parents. He snapped his watch shut. 4 minutes. If these aren't signed, the asset freeze activates. I am not risking my license. Sign here. Now. My father didn't read a word. The stickers and the ticking clock were enough. This protects the 2 million? He asked. It merges the assets, Johnny rasped. And the house? My mother pressed. Just a formality. Johnny whispered. She seized the pen and signed everything: quitclaim deed, trust documents, initials on every page. Henderson stamped the papers, locked them in his case, and walked out. The fake heart monitor beeped once more, then stopped. Johnny sat upright, removed the mask, poured water with steady hands. You don't get access, he said calmly. My parents froze. The money isn't yours. Johnny slid them a copy. Read Article 4. My father's face drained as he read. Trustee: Sierra Parker. Primary beneficiary: Sierra Parker. It's an irrevocable trust, Johnny said. There is no IRS audit. No 2 million. But the house? That was real. You just transferred it into a trust controlled entirely by your daughter. My mother shrieked. We'll tear it up. It's filed, I said. Electronically. My father lunged, screaming that we stole his house. Johnny blocked him. You stole $125,000 from a girl with a brain tumor. I just collected with interest. Security dragged them out. The deed is recorded, Johnny told me quietly. They're evicted. I thought it was over. I was wrong. My phone exploded with notifications. Caitlin had posted a video. The headline read, "The truth about my sister. Please watch." She cried into the camera from a Paris hotel, accusing me of addiction, extortion, elder abuse. Then she played edited footage of me screaming during a migraine, cutting out my mother refusing to send money for medication. Thousands piled on instantly. She's doxing you, Johnny muttered. Hospital room included. It was textbook. Darvo. Deny. Attack. Reverse victim and offender. Johnny stayed calm. She just handed us the weapon. We posted receipts. The unedited video, my mother's voice refusing $50 for meds. My toxicology report clean. Bank logs $125,000 wired to a luxury hotel. Flight upgrades purchased 4 minutes after my insurance was canceled. I tagged her employer. The internet flipped. 20 minutes later, her agency fired her. My parents disappeared into motel rooms and court filings. I sold the house instead of living in it. Used the money to launch the Parker Project, a foundation for students financially abused by family. They tried to bury me. They forgot something. I was a seed, and I turned their house into a future for people like me.